Hi, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition. I'm John Arezzi.
Weighing 225 pounds, John Anthony.
Looks like the road's getting a little hot now. Then he's scooped up by the tree.
How you doing, patrons? And welcome to your exclusive edition of Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind, where we bring you back to the early days of Inside Pro Wrestling Talk, covering the history of my groundbreaking radio show, which aired on commercial radio in the New York market from 1989 to 1995. Each week, this show reviews a different original broadcast from that era, giving you a look back at some of the breaking news stories, historic interviews, and memories from that time. We're talking about the inside of the business, about wrestling on the radio, was just really beginning, and it was beginning to gain traction in that industry. On this episode, we're going to review show number 8 of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, which originally aired on 1440 WNYG in Babylon, New York, on May the 28th, 1989. It is Memorial Day weekend, 35 years ago. We have a legendary guest, Killer Kowalski, and Sergeant Slaughter. So we have a good one to review today. But first, as we discussed on the last episode, for now, this review of those vintage shows can only be heard if you're a patron of Pro Wrestling Spotlight. And although we are still on all streaming platforms, those platforms will be to air full-length shows from my archives. So patrons, you will have an exclusive video link to access the Rewind, but on the streaming platforms, it's just going to be complete shows from the archives. The only place to hear Rewind at this point is really right here if you're a patron. For $5 a month, that'll get you the entire archives of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight and all the new episodes. For access to over 500 posts of audio content, 150 plus video content posts, photo sets, historic 8mm films from Madison Square Garden from the early 1970s. Join our all-access tier for just $15 per month. And if you'd like, higher tiers of support are also available. And if you choose one of those, you can also get appearances on this show if you prefer. Just go to patreon.com/John Arezzi and check it out. Or email me for more information or any questions, john@mattmemories.com. Let's bring on our co-host, producer, creative director, Marsh, so we can get this episode of the Rewind started. Marsh, how you doing?
Doing good.
Excellent.
Been a wild time.
Every week is wild. Has your life gotten a little wilder since you've been associated with me?
The conversations on my phone are a lot more wild, a lot more consistent. I'm on the phone more often.
Yeah.
And, the stories I get to tell my wife now when she comes home from work. This is what happened today. You won't believe it. So,
never a dull moment, right? Never a dull moment.
Yeah. Luckily, I haven't needed legal counsel.
No. We'll keep you
crazy.
We'll keep you out of the fray.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, life's a roller coaster. Things are good, things are crazy, but it makes life exciting, right?
I think it's fun. It's cool. I mean, I should have known after reading your book and after listening to the old episodes that something was going to happen by working with you at some point. Something wild was going to come up because you just attract it.
I do. I seem to be a magnet for craziness.
I think it's because you're fearless of the crazy. There's no crazy that's going to scare you.
No. there's no reason for it, especially with everything that I've done in my life. You take each bump in the road is just that, and you try to just straighten out the drive, and if something goes amiss, you just kind of turn the page on it and you move forward. I mean, that's all you can do. So that's kind of been my history, and but anyway, there are certain things in life you enjoy, and there are certain things in life that you got to kind of pivot from sometimes. And uh, I just keep active, and I keep trying to do good work with baseball, with this wrestling show, and everything else I do. It makes life interesting.
It does. It's exciting and it's fun. It's just kind of cool to talk to friends sometimes too and be like, oh yeah, I'm working with this guy now. And for them to be like, what? And I don't know, kind of cool being part of it all.
Well, I'm happy to have you here. You do incredible work on the shows that we're associated with, and this one is kind of like, this one strikes home, because this is like pro wrestling, and I know how passionate you've always been about it. And this particular episode we're going to talk about today, really 35 years ago, was you think about legends, and this show had one of the biggest legends in the history of the business.
Yeah, it opened up when you even said in the opening you're going to have Killer Kowalski on. My first thought was like, oh, crazy. But then as I'm listening to it, you had him on for like just over an hour.
Yeah.
Like you had him locked in for a long time, and you didn't take callers. You did let Sonny Blaze ask him a few questions, come on the line, which was really cool. But yeah, that's a long time to get Killer Kowalski. You got hooked up through him through Donnie, right?
Yes. Donnie and Walter were very, very tight.
Yeah. At one point you put over Donnie to him too, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, was this your first time actually interviewing him or talking to him at all, or?
Yes, it was. Yeah, so for me, it was always exciting when I got an opportunity, because he was, I remember him from the 60s wrestling and his feuds with Bruno, and taking photographs of them at Madison Square Garden in '74. And then when you get to talk to him, and how intelligent he is and how mindful he is of everything he put into his body, his workouts, the fact that he was in tremendous shape for his age, and just knowing how big of a legacy he had in the business of pro wrestling, and what he did even after he retired by training some major stars like Triple H. He's done so much.
Yeah, that's one that I think always follows. I think it's one of the reasons why his name was kept alive for so long after he had retired and stopped showing up, was because of his connection to Triple H. Because I don't think Triple H ever shied from the concept. He never once was all like not putting him over. Anytime he had a chance to talk about him, he would.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I used to collect 8x10s signatures. And it was in the early days of eBay and stuff. And so you get a hold of sports card shops and find out who's doing what. The only like old time 8x10 signed I had was Killer Kowalski. He was the one name that, because of Triple H, made me feel like a smart fan. And when I look back on it, I was definitely not a smart fan at all. I was the dumbest fan. But I felt like a smart fan who knew my history because I knew who Killer Kowalski was. And so it was kind of cool to hear his voice on this, because it's like, you know what? Everything I know about him has been way after that fact. This is cool to hear it from him.
Yeah, and it was great. I had the opportunity to bring him in to Weekend of Champions of 1992 as part of that big group of legends that were there. And every conversation I had, every meeting I had with him, I was just so impressed with how good of a person he was. And he's one of those guys you don't really hear anything bad about from anyone, with the exception of maybe the late Yukon Eric, who, changed his... Well, it changed both of their careers in a lot of ways when that happened in the 50s, when Kowalski tore off his ear accidentally. But having a guy like Kowalski and being able to talk to him and do business with him, and never hearing a bad word about him, which is really something that he, that was his legacy. Good person, good man, great wrestler, and one of the best there ever was.
How long did he have a school out there? Do you know?
Several years. Several years. Yeah.
I know Donnie would know off the top of his head, but do you happen to remember anybody else he trained outside of Triple H who went on to do big things?
I don't know if China was there as well. Perhaps. I know the Eliminators were there. Perry Saturn and John Kronos were trained by him. He had several that were that made it. Maybe no one as big as Triple H, obviously.
Well,
but he did have a very reputable school too. It wasn't a fly-by-night school.
no, he's legit. Do you want to listen to this first half here? You talked a little bit about it. This is you get him on the phone. It's the first time, apart from setting up this phone call. I imagine it's the first time you've talked to him.
Yeah, just setting it up, talking to him, and then getting him on the show. And that was that. So so this is the first one, and I just want to remind everybody out there, all the patrons that are watching this, that the full unedited show is up on Patreon as well, so you can check out the entire unedited 2-hour broadcast there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a little bit of a longer one for everybody. This is just over 7 minutes by a couple seconds. Typically, I usually cut 3 to 4 minutes on a lot of these, but this was just I just couldn't find a good spot to stop it. It was so good. So
enjoy it, everyone.
Now, our first guest today is going to be Killer Kowalski. Kowalski, as you know, is one of the most historic wrestling figures in the business. He's been around for quite some time now, runs a successful wrestling school in Massachusetts. Now, I'm going to conduct an interview with Killer first, then we're going to take a break after the interview, and then I'm going to try to take some of your calls and ask Killer Kowalski some questions. So before we do that, let's go right to Killer Kowalski. Killer.
Yes.
How you doing, sir? Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
Thank you, John.
Well, you're one of the top names in the history of wrestling.
History goes back a few years.
Very long time. Most wrestling fans today, everyone recognizes the name of Killer Kowalski. How long were you an active wrestler?
I was active for 25 years altogether. Started when I was 6 years old.
When you were 6 years old? So you're 31 now, I guess.
Yeah. People ask me, were you always this big? I said, no, when I was little. I weighed 205 pounds when I was born. Very difficult for my mother.
So that was in the Guinness Book, I guess.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. What were some of the major titles that you held in your long career?
I've had just every place I've gone, I've held some title. I was North American champion. I was a Southern States champion. I was a Mid-America champion. I was every place I've ever gone. And some places, I was in Australia. They were in Australia. They had their own version of the world's champion, which I held that on a couple of occasions. When I was wrestling out of the Boston area, I was the world's champion for one outfit. In fact, when Buddy Rogers was champion of NWA champion, I wrestled in Montreal. Match ended up me breaking his leg. Actually, I was awarded the match. NWA, because made some excuse, they wouldn't have recognized me. They wouldn't put my name in the book of records of being champion. So I took over all of Buddy Rogers' bookings. And I traveled around as the world's champion.
But did they proclaim you world champion, or they did not?
They gave me the title. I was supposed to be a champion because I took his belt with me. I was the champion, wrestled all around, took over all his bookings.
That was a serious injury then Rogers sustained then.
Well, one of those things. You get those things. Like myself, I had my neck injured to the point where I'm having difficulty with it now. And we have all had broken arms, broken legs,
Well, it's part of the business,
And people often say this, that, and the other thing about professional wrestling, but holy mackerel, guys get injured. Like some of the guys even newer wrestlers today are in casts almost. Some of them, like I can't remember the guy's name. He's got a bowling alley down in Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, that's Paul Orndorff.
Orndorff had to quit. That's exactly it. Had to quit wrestling to his back injury. Such a bad back to finally hang it up.
And also recently we found out about Jake the Snake Roberts. He just sustained a serious neck injury, and there's no telling when he'll be back.
That's right too. So these, there's no wires lowering the people's bodies. They fly up and they have to land. It's training as themselves, it's conditioning and training like a football player. Like trained and conditioned where they can take the punishment. Same with wrestlers. sometimes they miscue, and they go and they land wrong, boom, that's the end of them. They both get bad injury.
Well, you injured your share of wrestlers in your long and illustrious career. Perhaps the most famous was an incident that took place, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was in the late 50s, I believe.
Yes, it was.
And
Canada.
that was against Yukon Eric.
That's right. Yes.
And is that where you got the name Killer? You tore his ear off in the ring?
I jumped off the top rope, he moved. My shin bone, he had a very bad cauliflower ear. Very bad on his left ear. Very bad cauliflower. And you know what a cauliflower is? It's just, poor circulation. We all have poor circulation in our ears, right? Mm-hmm. You go out in the winter time, your ears freeze up and it can be very painful.
Right.
Well, when you get punched in the ear, it swells up. Therefore, the blood circulation is hindered and the blood starts to congeal. Sometimes the cartilage breaks, your ear just becomes very hard and not very pliable. That's what Yukon Eric had. He had two very bad cauliflower ears. You don't see that among wrestlers today.
No, you don't. I remember guys like Angelo Savoldi. He was famous for his cauliflower ears. Also, Bruno Sammartino has a set on him as well.
I have two cauliflowers. All the wrestlers got very bad cauliflower ears, just for a show. You punched, you get those forearms on the side of the head, there goes your ear.
Is that saying maybe the wrestlers of yesteryear were a little tougher than today?
I would say they are. Hell of a lot tougher. In fact, I call these your new wrestlers today steroid freaks. You get about a bodybuilder gyms, teach them one or two moves or holds, it's now you're a wrestler.
Right. It's not like the old days, Killer.
I'll get back to Yukon Eric in a minute.
Okay.
Always you find that the wrestler whose fathers were wrestlers are great today because their fathers taught them from the ground up the holds, the moves, and wrestling. Like Jake Roberts, his father taught him. Randy Savage, his father taught him. Angelo Poffo.
Right, Bob Orton. Bob Orton was another one.
Who?
Bob Orton Jr.
That's right. Bob Orton, Sr. taught his son. Strange part of it, when I was in Kansas City, wrestling there, Bob Orton Sr. used to come to the wrestling arena, said, gee, one of these gentlemen become a wrestler. One of these gentlemen become a wrestler. So he did. And he came, that was his inspiration for him. When I get back to Yukon Eric, I come off the top rope. He saw me. It's quite complicated because the referee was in between us. I tied his leg inside in the rope. The referee was below me, trying to untie his leg, and I leaped, trying to go over the top of the referee. Yukon Eric saw me coming, and he tried to move away, and I missed him. Believe it or not, I missed him. My shin bone grazed his cheek. So by all counters, I missed him. But my shin bone, when it caught his ear, just like you knock a fly off the table, his ear rolled across that ring.
Oh, boy.
From his head. So referee finally unhooks his leg and pushes me back. For crying out loud, get back, give the guy a chance to get up. And we both hear him scream. My ear, what's he scream? I said, I don't know. Referee looks down, picks up the gun, says, for crying out loud, look, it's his ear.
Yeah, there's some famous pictures circulating that were in the wrestling magazines years ago of the referee holding a piece of his ear.
Yeah. So they took him to the hospital about 2 hours later because the Frenchmen a bunch of ghouls, and they had him in the dressing room. And when word got out that his ear was severed from his head, the athletic commissioner heard about it. He was a nightclub. He was holding me. I want to come and see it. So they kept the guy there. So the Montreal athletic commissioner came down, like a monster, to take a look at the guy's missing ear. Oh wow, how about that? And then newspaper guys called up the photographers. They had to dig up some photographers this Wednesday night to dig them up from the nightclubs. It was 2 hours later before they got him 1 block away to the hospital.
Wow.
1 block away. So.
And that's how you got the name Killer? They started calling you Killer after that?
No, not yet.
Okay.
He was in great detail over that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of cool points, too. I mean, I know even with some of my friends, we've talked about how Chad Gable, we think, is the only guy we see right now with cauliflower ear at all. Like, it's
it was almost everybody had him back then.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a lot of there was a lot of headlocks, and there was just like the ring, the work rate, and the way the presentation was done back then was obviously totally different. Those guys were tough. They were men.
Right? These are the type of dudes who would cut their finger off and electrical tape it back on and drive themselves to the hospital.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those old stories.
Yeah, and they were believable. I mean, that's suspension of disbelief. They were believable, especially Kowalski. I never forget the first time I saw him, and I was on one of the old WWW tapings from Washington, D.C. And first time I saw this guy, and he was, I believe, with Wild Red Barry as the manager, but he would go in and he just start working on the abdomen, and he'd dig his fingers into the guy's abdomen and just keep squeezing in the claw, and it was just, and he worked on that body part like the whole match. And then he'd go up on the top and give him a knee drop and 1, 2, 3, and he was just so believable. What a great villain.
That's crazy. I was looking up pictures of the Yukon Eric ear incident.
Yeah.
I found one of Yukon like laying down in the back with them putting like something on his head because he's bleeding so much.
Yeah.
But I haven't yet found the one of the referee holding part of his ear because I think that'll be a cool one.
It is out there. I've seen it in the magazines.
Yeah. I'm finding it. I'm gonna find it, but I haven't yet. It was just all of that crazy. I hadn't heard about that, about the ear thing.
And it was covered pretty extensively in the wrestling magazines at the time. There weren't a lot of them, but there were 3 or 4. But it was a big story, and that's how we eventually became Killer. And what a career he's had! He had a phenomenal career, decades.
Yeah, amazing. Do you have any Killer Kowalski stories from when he worked with you at the convention?
Oh, I do. He was just the fans loved it, and he spent a lot of time with each and every one that wanted his autograph to take a photo. And I don't know if we should put this in this episode or not. Now that we're talking about it, I have an interview clip with him. From that, Stephen DeAngelis was doing a lot of interviews because we did an official video of Weekend of Champions that year. And Kowalski did like a 5-minute promo. Yeah. And it was phenomenal, talking about the dangers of steroids and the natural things you should put in your body. And it was just, and he got more intense as the promo took place. So maybe we'll insert it. I'll send it over to you. I'll edit the clip, but it's only a couple minutes, and I'll share it with you. And I think it would be good to put in this thing so people can actually see it.
Yeah, let's put it in here. Let's put it in at the end. When you say your outro, kick it to the
we'll take it right to that.
We'll go.
Take it right to that. And also, I would advise everyone, and I'll probably share a link on Patreon because this is up on YouTube. It was from April of 1974. It was Bruno versus Kowalski at Madison Square Garden. A lot of people call it the Battle of the Toupees because both of them had hair pieces that were, especially Walter's was coming off during the match. But he bloodied Bruno, and it's in the video you can see Bruno actually gigging himself with the blade, and there was a pull apart, and you could see a young John Arezzi in the first row. I'm right there in the first row, and I'm on camera like most of the match. Taking pictures, and so it's up there on YouTube, and I think I'll share that link for patrons as well, so they'll get a chance to see him and Bruno in action, which was almost a riot at the Garden because of the pull-apart brawl and all these guys running in the ring like Morales and Dean Ho and Monsoon. It was a great lead up to their rematch.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
History.
Yeah, no, I mean, that stuff's so cool. I wish that, I always hear this stuff too, and where I grew up, there never was, local wrestling even, let alone these big types of house shows that people could go to. There was nothing like that, so I just see this stuff and hear about these stories, and I was like, man, as a kid, I would have eaten it up if I could have gone to one of these places regularly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd eat it up now, not just as a kid. But so he does tell the story of how he got the name Killer because it happened, I think, after the Yukon Eric thing or something. But this is it right here.
Okay, cool.
They asked me to go, for a couple of days later, I'm in the office to get my payoff for the night. And they asked me to go visit Yukon Eric. For what? What do you mean, for what, you dummy, you dumb Pollock? He says, you knocked his ear off. We should go out and say apologize. The phone says, oh, baloney. So they actually took me by the hand and almost dragged me to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, I stood in the hallway and I could hear voices in his room. I said, I'm not going in there. There's a bunch of people in there. Well, the two guys from the office pushed me. I stood in the doorway. I looked across the room. He had a private room. I looked across the room. Here's Yukon Eric. The guy was 6'5". He's sitting up in a single bed. The guy was huge. He was a monster. He got a great big chest on him, big arms and everything. And his whole head was all bandaged up. He's sitting in this little tiny bed, it looked like. And with his head bandaged up, and he looks across the room at me, and I'm standing in the doorway, and I looked at him and I grinned. He grinned back at me. So I started laughing. He laughed at me, and I said, "Oh, for Carl," and I waved my hand at him. I walked out. That's exactly what happened. He started laughing too. The next day, in the room were newspaper people. Next day, the headlines on the sport page: Killer Kowalski visits Kowalski visits Yukon Hospital and laughs at him, which is true.
That's a great story.
So therefore, when I wrestled the following Wednesday in Montreal, people were throwing garbage at me and cans and everything. "You monster, you're nothing but a murderer. You're nothing but a killer." I said, "Tagged it. I said, killer. That fits pretty good." So they started calling me Killer Kowalski from now on.
And of course,
that's how I got the name.
And of course, after that.
But when those things happen, you don't feel sorry about it, you don't sympathize. It's one of those breaks in wrestling. Like in a football game, baseball game, any kind of guy gets hurt, no big deal. You're not going to start going over and start crying about it. It happens. And that's exactly the way attitude all the wrestlers had. The same attitude Yukon Eric had after. So that happened, what the heck? Those things were,
Did you ever face him in a match after that incident?
Yes, yeah, when I wrestled him after in Montreal, Canada. He almost killed me. He got mad. Very angry about the whole affair.
Walter...
Over the years, it's happened. I've injured other wrestlers, they've injured me, and I'll tell you the truth, one of the toughest guys I've ever met in my life, because, I'll mention his name in a minute. We were together in Japan. When you go to Japan, you never wrestle American blood. You only wrestle Japanese. Mm-hmm. So everyone there is a villain, more or less, because they cheer the Japanese on. This particular wrestler, it was a 6-week tour. I was there for 6 weeks, and this wrestler was there only for 4 weeks. And in the middle of the tour, he had 2 fingers on his left hand broken. They all get broken. So you don't put a cast on your hand because you got to wrestle. So all these taped it up with adhesive tape and taped the middle 2 fingers to the other outside 2 fingers, and other fingers act as a cast or as a crutch rather for it, or splint, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And while he's protecting his hand, he took a bad bump, and the other guy landed on him. He cracked 2 ribs. This guy still fulfilled his contract with 2 cracked ribs, 2 broken fingers, but not quickly. He wrestled for his whole tour and went home. That was Bruno Sammartino.
Bruno Sammartino, of course.
The guy was the toughest guy. He had guts like you wouldn't believe. I mean, today, in other sports, a guy gets a hangnail and he's sidelined.
They had the ultimate respect for each other, those 2 guys.
Yeah.
Bruno loved Kowalski and loved working with him.
You tell Kowalski a little bit about that too. I don't think I have that chunk specifically, but you do go on about how Bruno has always listed as one of his toughest opponents of all time. But they got along, I think, amazingly, right?
They did. They were friends, dear friends.
That's so cool. I love hearing the way that he chuckles about some of this stuff too. He almost killed me. He was pretty upset.
Kowalski had one of the most unusual bodies. I mean, he was big. He was tall, 6'6", 6'7", and he had like this. He had his arms were not big, and his legs were not big. He had a big-sized chest, and he was tall, but his whole body type, and he was very lanky. He was very mobile for a guy that big, so that's what really impressed me about him, was just the fact that he was so tall, and he was very agile and nimble, and he was a great brawler, and everything he did, like I said, I can't say it enough, just believability is what Killer Kowalski had from start to finish.
Yeah. Just awesome. I mean, I got 2 more killer clips because you had them for so long, and in a way I described it earlier when we were talking before, it felt like a dense episode because I'm just listening to this thing, but like I usually mark out stuff, like actually make little marks, not freak out but I make like marks in the thing, or I'll make clips as I go and listen, where I go, oh, that's a good beginning and sound bite. A lot of, dry stuff on the other side. His was very hard. I listened to his interview probably 5 or 6 times, just trying to reduce it enough.
Because it was so good, and one thing I don't think we bring up, and a memory just popped into my head, because I do recall one other time meeting Kowalski as far as, in close proximity. And that was when it was myself and I think Donnie and George. We took Chuck O'Connor, John Studd, and Killer, who were the wrestling as the Executioners. We drove them to the venue from the hotel. And I remember right before, like a block away from the arena for TV, they put their hoods on in the car and then, got out to the masses of the crowds that were waiting outside that building. But yeah, sometimes things pop into your head that you don't remember. But I did meet him that other time and took, post shots of him in the dressing room back then.
So you got a few cool Kowalski promo shots?
Yeah, I got a great shot. I actually got a lot of really good shots of the Executioners when they were teaming up as the WWF Tag Team Champions. That was right in the era where I had, full press access, and I got a lot of pictures of those guys together as champions.
That's awesome. If you have any, send them my way. I'll throw them in, and if you don't, then it's fine.
Oh, I got a lot of them in a folder, so I'll throw a few your way so you could put them up.
Oh, if they're in there, I might be able to find them too, because I think I have access to 1 or 2 of your folders. So I'll look.
Yeah,
and we'll put some.
Yeah,
up.
they're
cool.
There's definitely there. They're black and whites. They're not color pictures, but they're black and whites.
All right, cool. Yeah, well, and go through, mark it up. Let's use as many of as we can throughout these clips, so during them they can get some of that archive.
Yeah,
all over it.
Those patrons are getting a deal.
Yeah, they are. This is Killer Kowalski talking a little bit more about like the at the time the current day wrestlers, and he kind of says something. He doesn't say it the same way, but it's only been as of the last few years or so that we've really heard a lot of people saying giving people their flowers now. Give them their flowers while you can. That's been kind of a newer sentiment, realistically, to be so big amongst society in general. Give people their flowers now, and that's really what he's saying in this one, which I thought was really cool, because here we are so many years later, and it feels like we just got caught up to what he's saying.
In your opinion, who are the best wrestlers today?
Today, DiBiase. Very, very good.
He's a great wrestler. Yes, he is.
He's the Solitaire, of course. Mm-hmm. He takes Savage is very good. Solitaire. Jake the Snake is very good. See, all of these guys whose father taught them the good today. And I'm going to tell you the truth. Some of those guys are real schleps. Real schleps of those guys. Mm-hmm. I'm Ultimate Warrior. Oh, boy.
Yeah, he definitely, he may excite a crowd, but I don't see any wrestling skills there at all.
No. I'll tell you one guy who was good. This guy was tremendous. When he first came from France, he came to Montreal.
Bravo?
Andre the Giant.
Oh, Andre, okay.
He was great. He could drop kick. Imagine that big son of a gun like that.
Yes.
Monster. He dropped it, he could do anything. He'd climb the top of, come fly off that, like snooker. He'd come off the top, jump up and splash you, you're dead.
I remember some of the wars he had with Donnelly O'Jonathan, some super matches.
That's right, and he was great. But now, he's up, and he's getting up there, he's got injuries, he's got 2 bad knees, he's got this wrong with him. The guy's handicapped, actually, right now.
Well, he actually scares me when I see him in the ring, because he looks so unhealthy in there. I remember him years ago, and he was great, but you get frightened watching Andre in the ring, because you never know what's going to happen to him in there.
He's so big, yet so heavy. With that, weight comes a lot of strength. He is a strong son of a gun. No doubt about it. He's very, very powerful, very strong. And when he gets mad in that ring, you better get out. Mm-hmm. He's like a big bear. If he swings his arm, and if he connects your head, he's going to knock your head right off.
Have you wrestled him?
He'd beat the hell out of me many a time. Somebody asked me one time, he said, now when you were in your prime, and you were a guy like Hulk Hogan, who would win? I said, Hulk Hogan. He said, oh, I said, look, just a minute, just stop. I've had my glory. I've been through it. What am I to gain by saying that today I could beat Paul Hulk Hogan? I've been there before. I've gone that route. Let the guys who are there today have their glory. Hulk Hogan was the champion. He's great.
What's your opinion of Ric Flair, NWA champion?
I think, see, Ric Flair's from the old school.
Right.
He's been around a few years now, but he's tremendous. He has talent, he has science, he's very, very good. And a lot of those guys out there are very good. Some of those guys, they have there in that NWA, like the Sting, yeah, baloney. He can't go with wrestling teams, you know. Barry Windham, very good.
This kid Rick Steiner is very good as well. Steve Williams,
Barry Windham was an amateur wrestler.
Right.
So he had a good foundation. And he was taught by another amateur wrestler who became a professional. So he had a good training, and he is good today. So some of these guys who are taught, who had good backgrounds as amateur wrestlers or something, then they become very, very good, or their fathers taught them. So their fathers really beat the hell out of them to make sure they learn the proper way and learn correctly. And these are the guys who become good wrestlers.
We had a guest on last week, someone you're familiar with, Don Liable, one of the top reporters in the business, and he brought up the fact that you also have touched on here today about the second-generation wrestlers. Now, after this crop, like of Bob Orton Jr., of Randy Savage, after they go, do you feel that there won't be any more second-generation wrestlers because the talent of the guys in the ring now do not compare to yesteryear?
Well, we know that's not the case.
It's not the case. That's not how it goes. But you guys bring up Orton a little bit, and he goes on actually to. Because I thought the question was cool. The answer was just like, okay, he just talks about how good the new talent is.
Yeah.
I think he puts over Bruno's kid a little bit.
Yeah.
But mostly he's just talking about how.
Yeah.
Mostly it was about how his school is bringing in such good talent that he's not concerned about the future not having second generation stars. Like you said, we know that we get second, third, and fourth generations coming in. So,
especially on the Samoan side.
Yep, that's 50% of the roster. They keep coming.
But yeah,
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, another Kowalski memory, because we used to get the Olympic Auditorium tapes in New York on Channel 41, the Spanish station, and John Tolis and Kowalski had a pretty cool run out there in Los Angeles, and even Bruno worked against Kowalski in Los Angeles. Kowalski was the America's champion back there, 72, I think it was. But yeah, he was just, no matter where he was main event heel.
That's awesome. So obviously you preferred Blassie, but did you follow Kowalski a lot at the time when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I was just, he was one of the big monster heels. He was just a consummate bad guy. And, Blassie was always my number one, Tolis. And I would say, Kowalski, as far as if I put him on a list, whether it's top 5, top 10, all time for me, he probably squeaks in right around the lower part of that top 10 for me. But he's up there.
No, I mean, it's still good. I mean, top 10 and of all the years you've been watching.
Yeah, it's Bruno, it's Blassie, it's Tolis, it's Don Leo Jonathan, guys like the Sheik. Those are like upper echelon for me. When you're talking about old school stuff, and then Kowalski's right there. There was Antonio Pugliese, Spiros Arion. I mean, Spiros Arion is probably top 3 with me. It was got to be Blassie and Spiros and Bruno and Tolis, Jonathan. Those are probably top 5 for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did Donnie run his fan club?
No.
At any point?
No.
Just wondering.
Donnie wasn't a fan club president. He had a little newsletter for a while, but he didn't have a wrestler fan club.
All right. Slacking. The only one at the time who didn't. Here, let's wrap it up with Killer Kowalski. He takes a few questions from Sonny Blaze.
Okay.
In the studio here with us today, Killer, is one of the top young professional wrestlers now appearing on the independent circuit. His name is Broadway Sonny Blaze, and he's also a wrestling historian, remembers you back when you were wrestling. He'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
Good evening, Mr. Kowalski. How you doing? It's an honor to be speaking with you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I didn't get to see you during the peak of your career. I got to see you towards the end when the Grand Wizard was managing you.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, now you were one of the most recognizable figures in wrestling at the time.
Well, see, excuse me, just to digress for a moment. When I retired as a champion. John Studd and I were the WF tag team champions, were known as the executioners.
Yes, I'm aware.
He was number one, John Studd was number two.
But I wanted to... Do you recall wearing the purple mask with the lightning bolt?
Yeah.
What made you decide to wear a mask at the end of your career?
Well, at the one time I had a bad ear. And ears started giving me a little problem. So I said, what the heck? And again, naturally, the guys would give you an elbow form. It's in the proper ear, it's the left ear. So, and it's already cauliflowered anyway. So I thought, so the WF told me to put a mask on. Well, this is fine. I still wrestle with Killer Kowalski, but I put a mask on. And I taped the ear very, very bad, very well. And I put the mask on to hide the tape.
I see.
Killer Kowalski.
This way your opponents would know.
Well, someone knew about what's happened. It looked pretty weird in the ring. All this adhesive tape or bandage tape around the ear, you know. It stands out too much.
I see.
So I had to hit the tape ear with the mask.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about your diet. Now, you had mentioned you're a vegetarian.
35 years vegetarian.
Now, I'm 6 foot tall. I weigh 220. I have trouble keeping the weight on. How would I maintain 220, 30 pounds on vegetables?
What are the biggest animals in the world? Name a big animal, biggest animal.
I see what you're saying. The elephant.
Elephant.
Right.
He eats tons. Horses, they eat a lot. They eat tons. You know, vegetables are easy to digest. So in fact, even today, I eat a lot. People got up to dinner, they said, geez, you eat a lot. I said, I'm a big guy.
Well, you had one of the greatest physiques in wrestling of all time.
Well, one time I used to work on train. I don't know, we got to the point where I used to go to the gym at 3 o'clock in the morning. I used to have a key to the gym because I come off a road trip. And I know if I went to bed, I had to travel again the next day, so I better work out before I go to bed. A lot of wrestlers do that. Even do that today. They have keys to certain gyms. Because they come off the road, they go to the gym, work out, then go to bed. Because once they got up, they have to make another trip, but they forget about working out. So at that time, we were very, very dedicated, most wrestlers. Very, very dedicated. Work out, train, travel, keep going. See, now it's more airfare, more airline travel. Of course, the trips are much longer, too. But now, from what I heard, WF, any trip under 400 miles has to be driven. Just make them drive it. So you get in the car with a couple of the wrestlers and just spot each other driving, trying to make the trips eventually make it through.
Good stuff there. Another tidbit, Chuck O'Connor, who eventually became John Studd, he was one of the first Kowalski students.
Okay.
Yeah, so when Chuck O'Connor debuted in the WWF, pre-Big John Studd, he was almost had the same body physique at the time as Kowalski did before he really bulked up. But O'Connor, when he made his debut at Madison Square Garden and also on TV back then, he wore the same tights as Kowalski did, the purple with the lightning bolts on the sides. But he was instrumental in obviously becoming one of the biggest names in the business. But he was such dear friends with Walter, and Walter gave him his start.
I don't have a lot on that one. I thought it was good. I just thought it was cool that Sonny's got Killer Kowalski's ear, and his thought is like, how do I put on more weight?
Yeah. If I were just eating vegetables.
Yeah, yeah.
Sonny was carnivorous. He used to eat a lot of meat.
Really? Well, yeah. I know a lot of guys who had a hard time putting on weight, and they were eating like 6, 7 chicken breasts at a meal and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but that was cool, and obviously Sonny is respectful as ever.
Always, Mr. Kowalski.
Yeah. It's an honor, first and foremost. Yeah.
Still the same
cool,
today. Same respectful dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he'll still yes sir, no sir you all day long, and you're kind of like, what?
Mr. San Martino,
Yeah.
Mr. Backlund.
Yeah. He's just he's a top-notch guy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also cool just that you were able to get him on the line with him for a minute,
Yeah, it was good. It was a good interview. It was for that time on Pro Wrestling Spotlight, which we're really only finishing our second month on WNYG. The guests were really starting to get really, really cool. We're starting to get some really good names on there, like Fez from the previous week and Kowalski, and then the other guest we had on in this episode was kind of a big name, I would think.
Yeah, this was big. This was cool. After that, though, you had been putting over since the beginning that you're going to have the Master on. And that's kind of all you would refer to him as.
That's what he wanted to be called as. The Master. He was a character, that guy, man. And we're talking about Larry from LNS Comics.
Yeah. Listening back to this one, too, I was almost thinking, I was like, this might have been a really good one to get Larry back on for.
Yeah.
Just because he was there for so long answering these questions. So what it was Larry, the Master, was taking questions from your callers, and if they stumped him, he would let them get an LJN figure. Specifically, he was really there to promote the show, obviously his store, so everyone was winning. And if you didn't win, then he gave you, like, if you didn't stump him, he gave you a chance to answer one of his questions, and if you got it, that was enough, right? And then there was one guy who failed to stump him and failed to answer the question right, and he's like, give him a figure anyways,
Yeah. Well, you want the people in that store, because once they go in that store, they're going to spend money.
Yeah, come in and get it from the store, because, why don't you look around while I go find your prize?
He was a good promoter.
Yeah. It's not in here, so I'm just going to say it before we get into the segment. The one question, the one person who didn't win anything was a guy who called in and said, do you know Hulk Hogan's real name? And Larry's like, what the fuck? He's like, that's too easy. So he says the answer, doesn't even give him a chance to redeem himself like he did everyone else. He says, that shit's too easy, you lose. I love it. And I do believe Larry's like 25 here, right?
Young kid, yeah.
Yeah. Store owner, very young.
Yeah, I wasn't that old myself back then. I was 30. I was 34. I was 32 at that time.
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys were young guys. I just think that at 25 to have a collectible store that's doing that well and specializing in what he was like.
And there wasn't any others for competition. There was really no place else on Long Island that you could go in and pick up these action figures. Of course, they were in department stores and the Walmarts of the world and all of that. But as a specialty store, that was one of the first of its kind.
Yeah. Yeah, which is also kind of remarkable. You just think about the day and age of it all, right? Now there's so many of them. Most cities have a place you can go to for some of this, and most people order it online anyways. He found a nice pocket in Long Island.
Yeah.
Was able to advertise to the local market and just be successful forever.
Yeah.
Just being the specialty shop. It's impressive and it's cool, and Larry's a funny guy.
It was a perfect association with our show as well.
Absolutely. Here's the first segment with Larry the Master.
Let's take our first question here. Now, if you do have a question to try to stump the Master, Larry, welcome to the show, first of all.
Hey, how you doing, John?
You are one of the owners of LNS Comics.
Yes, I'm one of the prime owners of LNS Comics, Inc., and we seem to specialize in not only character-related merchandise, but also the wrestling merchandise. We seem to be the only store in the tri-state area that does specialize in wrestling merchandise, and that includes like the magazines and the games, dolls.
I tell you,
all over.
You got me hooked. Not to interrupt you, and excuse me, I got a bad cold here. The WrestleMania cartridge, the Nintendo cartridge. I went out and bought a Nintendo system just specifically for this cartridge. and I have Nintendo thumb now from playing it the last few days. It's an excellent cartridge. They must be selling like hotcakes over there.
That is the hottest cartridge on the market. Has almost permanently put back one of the cartridges that most comic book fans have been looking for a damn long time. There's a cartridge called X-Men, which, as you may know, was the most popular comic book. But with Batman Fever, Batman has replaced everything in terms of comics. So you've got Batman replacing X-Men, but X-Men was the most popular comic book group. They were supposed to have a cartridge out due last year. It was all set for May, and WrestleMania came out, blew off the shelves, and they pulled all the Nintendo chips, which are allocated by Nintendo to put in the cartridges, and they pulled them from X-Men, put them in into the WrestleMania.
It's a great game, and matter of fact, you can pick it up at L&S Comics during the week. Excuse me. Let's take our first call here. We have Robert from Central Islip on the phone. Robert, you're on the air.
Yeah, hello?
Yes.
This is a question.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me get the master for you. Larry the Master, go ahead.
Okay. You there, Master?
Yeah, we're all set, Rob.
Okay. Name the only two wrestlers in the history of the WWF to be recognized as the United States Heavyweight Champion.
In the WWF to be recognized as the United States Heavyweight Champion?
Yep.
Let's see. Is that the Pat Patterson Dino Bravo belt that was on for about 2 weeks?
Nope.
Because there was a belt out. It was the actual before Intercontinental belt. That's what it was called. It was called the United States belt. Pat Patterson had won it in some. Dino Bravo had won it in some fictional tournament, which Pat Patterson had later won from him, and then they called it the Intercontinental belt. From then on, you know the rest of the story for Intercontinental belt. I know they had the national belt for about 2 days when the spoiler came up, and then they ignored that belt immediately. That was during the takeover, when WWF took over TBS's time slot for the NWA. U.S. belt, the only U.S. belt I remember was that one. But go ahead. If you've got one, you stump me.
Okay, I'll try to be an arbitrator here. If I know the answers, I think you were wrong on that one, though.
Okay,
Master.
Go ahead.
1970s, Bobo Brazil.
Correct.
And 1985 or 1986, the spoiler.
That was national. Spoiler was national. However, guess what? I say give it to you. I'm very generous. I say give it to you.
All right, you got a wrestling doll there, buddy.
All right.
Congratulations.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Hello?
Yeah?
Just hold the line, okay? Then we'll get our producer will speak to you about about where you can pick up your doll, okay? Hold on 1 second, all right? 661-1440. Now, I do remember Bobo Brazil. That's very true. Bobo Brazil did have the WWF, not WWF, United States Heavyweight Championship, which they did recognize when he came in for a few shots. He wasn't here for a long time, defending that title, but he did come in with it.
63.
Excuse me?
63.
Okay. Let's take another.
63. Who was telling me that? But I remember Bobo. Yeah, I remember Bobo for sure, and I believe before he got banned, the Sheik also came in as the United States champion.
Oh, yeah. Did they? I mean, I guess I could just do a quick Google, but do you remember if the United States Championship that they use now goes back to that era? Like when they brought it back, did they pick it up where it left off, or did they just say this is our United States Championship?
No, they never recognized the lineage of United States Championship.
Okay, I didn't think so. That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, I get a kick out of Larry, the master.
Yeah. And he was
we do have 2 more Larry clips to close out the show, but before that, you got Sergeant Slaughter on.
Excellent. The Sarge.
Was this the first time you talked to Sarge?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I met him in person not too long after that. at, I believe it was a fair on Long Island that he was headlining, and that's when I first met Misty Blue as well. It was right in that ballpark. But of course, my most famous interaction with Sergeant Slaughter was August of 1990, when I was arrested for scalping tickets at SummerSlam during my convention, my first convention weekend, and I was sitting on the floor in cuffs. And Sergeant Slaughter passed by, and he looked at me. He was like, "John Arezzi," and he just started laughing and walked away. Memories.
Do you remember if you ever saw him again after that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I saw him, and I saw him in Iowa at the Hall of Fame, at the Dan Gable Hall of Fame deal, and I actually got put in the Cobra Clutch, and got a nice photo of getting the Cobra Clutch on me.
Did you ever talk to him about your incident?
Yes,
I did. Bring it up?
I brought it up.
I don't know if you're going to try and kayfabe. Like, that probably wasn't me.
Hey, listen, it happened. Well, I was an idiot. And I spent the night in a Philadelphia jail. On a bus trip, no less.
What's also funny, too, is those guys we talked about were like real men's type. Yeah. So even if he saw you getting carted away, in his mind, he's probably like, night in the old pen.
I was just sitting there waiting
for the boy.
To be put in a paddy wagon. And then I get put in the cell with like these three really 3-4 tough, really tough guys, right? And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "What are you in for?" And I kind of told him, like I did radio, and he goes, "Oh, you Joe Franklin?" And they kept calling me Joe Franklin in the cell. And then one of the dude's girlfriend was outside, yelling into, and he was like, "Keisha," "Keisha, that you?" "Yeah, it's me." "Keisha, go up and get me I'm gonna be out of here soon. Go to the store, make sure you get me some Twinkies."
Because going to the bodega to get him yourself afterwards.
I had a lot of adventures, man. But that was horrific, especially when Fred the Elephant Boy, when they went to the station house to try to get me out of jail after SummerSlam, and I had to stay because it was the weekend and I couldn't see the judge till the morning, and then I was released, and that was that story.
That's awesome. It's perfect. I just like the idea of you trying to explain to Sergeant the next time he sees you. I was just selling some. I just love it too, because it was the first person you walked up to. "Hey, do you want tickets?" "Yeah, I do." As a matter of fact,
the very first person right off the bus, and I'm like, the show sold out. I got, I think I had like 40 tickets, and I should have just sold them at face value, but I didn't, and that was the end of it. Have a good time, everybody. I'll see you when I see you.
So funny. Any other Sarge stories you want to tell, or you want to get into more?
No, I think we're good with the Sarge.
All right. Yeah, I just like
order.
I like it. It's a little bit of a longer interview. I kept the whole interview because it's like 6 minutes. But this was his first time on your show, and it was one of the first times you talked to him. So I thought, let's just see what he's got to say.
All righty.
Questions for the master right after this interview with Sergeant Slaughter. So Sergeant Slaughter was on the air with us, and this is what he had to say, speaking about his illustrious career.
1-0. Back with the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. We're very fortunate to be on the telephone right now with one of the most popular wrestlers in the sport today, and I'm speaking of Sergeant Slaughter. Mr. Slaughter, thank you for coming on the program.
Well, it's great to be here.
Well, you were one of the most popular wrestlers of all time here in the WWF area. Right now, you're doing some other things. Tell us about what you're doing at the present time.
Well, right now I'm wrestling independently. I wrestle for everybody, and I am the America's Heavyweight Champion. I also hold a couple other belts in other leagues, and defend those a lot. And I'm also the star of the G.I. Joe cartoon show that's presently on Monday through Friday.
Tell Tell us about that. I understand that is involved with Hasbro, or is that something totally different?
Yes, Hasbro Toys has Hasbro Bradley owns G.I. Joe, and I've been with them for 5 years and been having a great time with it. They selected me to be the only living G.I. Joe character, and so far it's been doing very well for me.
I understand you also have a contest or something coming up where you're looking for some outstanding youngsters?
Yes, well, we have the annual G.I. Joe Search for Real American Heroes going on. That's for children between the ages of 5 and 12 that are U.S. citizens and did a heroic deed since January 1st of 1988, whether it be a life-saving feat, community service deed, personal achievement, helping others achieve personal goals, things on that order. And in order to be nominated, the person that might want to have someone nominate them should include a brief paragraph about their heroic deed and proof of the heroic deed, and send it off to the G.I. Joe Search for Real American Heroes before July 15th of 1989 to 225 Park Avenue South on the 17th floor, New York, 10003. We're going to have 50 state award recipients, and the state award recipients receive G.I. Joe Medal of Commendation, and we go from there and make 10 national award recipients. And the 10 nationals will go with myself to Washington, D.C., and receive the national award and have a 3-day trip with one parent or whoever they choose to tour Washington, D.C., and possibly meet President Reagan, or President Bush. We met President Reagan the last year we were there.
Well, that sounds great. You've been well known in your career, your illustrious career, for getting involved with good causes and helping children. You still have the Cobra Corps?
No, the Cobra Corps is no longer. I'm strictly with the G.I. Joe now.
Okay, fine. But like I said, we commend you for your outstanding work with the children, and that's very commendable on your part. Also, as far as your wrestling career, recently we've noticed you were involved in kind of a war with Larry Zbyszko, the current AWA heavyweight champion. Are you still going after that title?
Well, Larry Zbyszko is the one I've won the America's Heavyweight Championship from in Chicago, and that was back in 1985, and I've defended ever since. Now he has become the world champion of the American Wrestling Alliance, and I put my more or less bid in for a title shot. I don't seem to be getting one. I wrestled him one time since he became the champion, and that was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He didn't like the idea that I brought Bruno Sammartino down to my corner.
Right, we had Bruno on the program a few weeks back,
yeah.
And he discussed that. He just said he couldn't understand why Zbyszko is carrying this grudge over all these years, and the man has got to be insecure, to say the least, if he continues to hold this grudge against Sammartino, and I figure maybe he's possibly avoiding you now because you did beat him for that America's Championship.
Yes, I'm sure that he's avoiding me quite a lot. He knows that I beat him and I can beat him, and if he wants to hang on to that America's Wrestling Alliance Championship, he better not wrestle Sergeant Slaughter or anyone of the caliber of Bruno Sammartino.
Exactly. We had Zbyszko on as well here a few weeks back, and he's just as arrogant as ever.
Oh, yeah.
Also, you were, as I said earlier in the interview, you were one of the most popular wrestlers ever to appear in the World Wrestling Federation. Fans were dismayed when you did leave the organization a few years back. Is there any chance, or is the door still open for you possibly returning to the World Wrestling Federation, or are those doors completely closed now?
Well, the doors are open on my end. It's up to the promoters and whoever is running the WWF to contact me and sit down and hopefully get a contract suitable for both parties. Right now with the G.I. Joe, I have a lot of time to wrestle, and if they would like to have me appear back in their show, I'd be more than happy to if we can work out the agreement.
So you are open to that idea?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, fine. Finally, in your opinion, which is an expert opinion, you've been in wrestling for quite some time, who is the top wrestler in the business today?
Well,
aside from yourself.
Yes. Well, one of the top wrestlers I'd have to say is Ric Flair. who wrestles every night of the week. Most organizations now are cutting back and not wrestling every night. Ric Flair defended his title when he had it, and when he didn't have it, he still wrestled every night of the week. And I have to commend him to be in that type of shape and to go that many years night after night and still have a winning record. He's one of the tops.
Yes, he is an outstanding wrestler.
Yes.
Sergeant Slaughter, we thank you for the time you've given us today. Best of luck with your future endeavors. And someday when you're in the New York area, we'd love to have you on the program.
Well, thank you. Word of advice to all my young fans out there and to my old fans also. Keep your chin up, keep that chest out, keep saying no to drugs, and never ever let your enemy eat your breakfast, and that's in order.
You've heard it from Sergeant Slaughter. Thank you very much.
Yo, Joe.
Words of wisdom from the Sarge.
Never let your enemy eat your breakfast.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, he did get brought back, as a lot of people know, but this time McMahon decided to get back at him from losing that Hasbro lawsuit with G.I. Joe and made him an Iraqi sympathizer.
Yeah.
And they headlined WrestleMania with one of the most tasteless angles in the history of the WWF.
Yeah.
You can come back, pal, but this is what my plan is for you.
Yeah. What's also funny about that is, you really, honestly, there's no way around it. He thought it would ruin Sergeant Slaughter's character. He thought he would bury it forever.
Yep. That was his intention, I believe.
But it didn't work.
My own personal opinion.
Yeah.
It didn't work. Of course, Sergeant Slaughter is always going to be known as somebody that was true blue patriotic, and that year and a half run was just a black mark. And I'm surprised that he actually did it, but, money talks.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be. And maybe he also thought, maybe he looked at it as, if I just do these things the right thing, then we'll fix it or whatever. But
is he in the Hall of Fame? Do you know?
I'm pretty positive he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I don't know what year, though. Sergeant Slaughter Hall of Fame. Looks like 2004.
Okay.
Inducted in the Hall of Fame by Pat Patterson. So, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, they had
they had that.
some battles.
Series.
My goodness, yes. Brutal stuff.
Oh, dang. I got a question for you. Street Wise Guys Limited custom hats.
Yes. The most odd, one of the most oddest sponsors probably in history of the show. They had baseball caps, but they would glue action figures on the bill. Those mini little wrestling action figures. So you'd have a baseball cap with action figures like on them, on the bill of the cap and around the head. And they were just poorly produced and put together. They didn't last long. I think it was a 3 or 4 week run, and it was kind of a joke. And
it was the way you were talking about it. Get these custom hats made, and they're like, use them for your ball team. Look, use them for
run around the bases, and they all fall off.
Like
the little action men.
Of all the concepts I had of custom hats and how they shittily might be designed, gluing action figures never crossed my mind.
No, it wasn't an idea that took off. Let's put it that
way. Do you remember who they were? Why they were called Street Wise Guys?
I think maybe they were a little, unscrupulous.
Yeah.
Hey, we got this idea about these hats. What do you think?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
People have these figures, huh?
I know these wrestling figures are getting popular. Maybe if we stick them on a hat, could be a whole new thing. We could make a lot of money.
No one's doing it. No one's doing it.
And then it was like 3 weeks later. No one's buying it. No one's buying it.
A couple other things before we get back to Larry. You talk about No Holds Barred and how it's horrible. You talk about how Vince was on David Letterman to promote it.
Yeah. It was horrible.
Yeah. I think you were waiting till next week to really bury it, but you were starting
Yeah.
to bury it here.
Yeah, well, I was like, I couldn't even believe what was going on, and I was like, "Wait, this business is finished."
Iron Sheik was fired again for an altercation in the airport. Do you remember this?
Yeah,
What happened there?
I don't remember that actually.
Okay, you just remember that happened.
Yeah,
And Dusty Rhodes is back in the WWF. So
was that right? That was right when they started to do the vignettes and then polka dots, which was another, kick in the teeth. Like that was another McMahon. Like, yeah, we'll get Dusty back in. We'll put some yellow polka dots on him.
I mean,
what a creative mind that Vince had when he was trying to fuck with somebody. Hey, by the way, the documentary airs this week. It premieres on Netflix.
The Ringmaster one? Or no, it's not called Ringmaster. It was Vince something.
It was Mr. McMahon. It's called
Mr. McMahon.
Yeah, it's a 6-parter. It's like 6. I think they're streaming them all at once, but I think they're 6 1-hour episodes.
Mr. McMahon. Yeah, that's
coming out.
Insane. That's got to be. I can't
wait.
Be
huge. It's gonna be huge. Yeah. And there's no holds barred, from what I understand. No holds barred. There's gonna be a lot of people happy with it because they put him over too for the great things he did. But there's gonna be a lot of negative stuff about the sexual allegations and Janelle. She's hired a PR firm, from what I understand, for when this thing comes out. It's gonna be talked about everywhere. I'm sure the national media is gonna really take a look at this one.
This could be a huge moment in the Vince saga. You know what I mean?
It will be.
I wonder what, it will be one way or the other, but it has the potential to be massively, is this where he disappears? Is this where he flies to some island? And you know what I mean? Is this where he just goes in and turns himself? Who knows what's going to happen, right? Yeah. He'll never give up, but
it's going to be an amazing series. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah. I think Jim Ross seemed on his podcast a little annoyed that they didn't call him to interview him.
They didn't call a lot of people. I thought even I might get a call from it because of all the coverage I did back then. But I know the main wrestling journalist that's associated with it is Meltzer.
Really?
Yeah.
Man. A lot of his stuff came from you too, though, at that time.
Well, we shared.
Yeah, that's true. Whatever, man. I hate that guy. I'm just kidding. I don't hate him.
I will never hate Dave, no matter what he's become or what he's turned into after all these years. I remembered back then, he was the source. He was the guy. Yeah. Everyone talked to him, and he did groundbreaking stuff. Right now everything is so polarized, and Dave has changed his personality and is certainly more combative.
Mm-hmm.
Which he wasn't back then because he didn't have the forum like he did with social media today. But I'll never hate or disrespect Dave Meltzer, no matter what people say about him.
Oh yeah, no, I don't hate him at all. I actually think he's a pretty fascinating character.
I'm talking in generalities, not specifically to you.
Yeah. But I also wanted to be clear that I was making a joke at the time because I think he's a fascinating personality. I think that there needs to be a story done on him at some point.
There does. There really does.
His whole life story is kind of nuts.
He was a pioneer.
Yeah. And like you said, at this point, I don't hang my hat on his star ratings or anything like that. It's if he says something's happening, I kind of, okay, whatever. I just watch and enjoy at this point more than anything. So I think that's why I'm
the star ratings meant so much more back then in the late 80s, the 90s. They really had impact. And those 4-star matches were not given out very often.
Do you think part of the reason that the stars had more of an impact and made a difference was because it was harder for people to see all the matches? Where nowadays everyone gets to watch exactly what he saw.
Yeah. I don't know how he transitioned into what it is today, but back then, he was kind of the source. He was I called him the New York Times of pro wrestling back then, and his ratings meant something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wonder if part of it was credibility bit back then. A lot of credibility.
Yeah. I just think maybe part of it was also the fact that since no one could watch the match, well, Dave said it was 4-star. Oh, then it was a good match, right? Like then and then so you get an idea, although you're not able to see the territories in the matches, you have an idea who's doing well.
Yeah,
and
you get excited. It was also he really started because people wanted to see these matches, and then it really increased the tape trading industry.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, the special is coming out. You did put over the Observer at one point, but I believe I cut that out because we've heard a lot of you and David Meltzer.
David.
I just liked it at the time. He was David. But here's one of our last two clips. This is Larry talking about how about how long he's been a fan, and he talks a little bit about the LJN figures, which, as a nerd for the figures, not on the level of a Cardona by any means. Like that guy knows his stuff, but always been a big fan of these figures, and always thought the history of the LJN was already a little strange to me. And I like that even here in this moment, he's explaining exactly what's going on with it.
Yeah, and that's where Cardona got that passion, by visiting LNS Comics.
Yeah, I wonder how much he specifically remembered and learned from Larry.
661-1440, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. A couple of our regular callers calling in and trying to stump the master. Where did you compile all this wrestling knowledge?
Through many, many years of hard play. No, hard study and play. Now, actually, if you watch wrestling enough over a 25-year period, I'm only 24, so it's pretty difficult to do, but no, I've been watching it since I've been about 3 or 4. Started with my grandfather and just kept watching and learning more and meeting the different wrestlers. Did a big interview radio show myself at Wagner College, and that used to be broadcast all over Staten Island. Used to write some wrestling columns, so I'm familiar with some of the wrestlers, and I've done a number of interviews myself. So you learn a lot that way, and plus it helps when if you read the magazines, you got to read between the lines, because all of the magazines don't exactly tell you the full story. If you read between the lines of the PWI, they're fun magazines of PWIs and sports reviews, but they do embellish the truth quite a bit.
All right, you heard it from the master, Larry, from LNS Comics. Now, well, tell us a little bit about your sale tomorrow. What's going to be on sale over there as far as the wrestling merchandise?
Let's see. As you may know, there is, for the wrestling dolls, I don't know how many people used to go to Toys R Us and always see, every time you'd go, there'd be 5,000 Hulk Hogan's,
Mr. Fuji's,
Mr. Fuji, and one Piper. Well,
a lot of Vince McMahon's, too.
Now there's Vince McMahon's, but what happened was they put them out in series. Series 1, 2, and 3 were very readily available through Toys R Us, KB. When it came to Series 4 and 5, it seems that KB, Child World, Toys R Us never picked up on it. So LJN was forced to set them through international waters. Generally, it happens with a toy when it's being phased out is they'll cancel its domestic layout, and they'll only do it for a foreign market. So all of the 3rd and 4th series, which include the new Hulk Hogan doll, Vince McMahon, let's see, Bam Bam Bigelow, One Man Gang. They were all produced, but they were produced in such short numbers that they were produced only for the international distributors. I've been getting them in for a while, but now that LJN, yes, they have lost the license. There are no more wrestling dolls to be produced for a long time. LJN had to clear out their warehouse, and I finally ended up getting a very large stock. However, they have disappeared. I'll tell you, you guys, once I started putting the ads on the wrestling shows, like John Arezzi's.
John Anthony, please.
John Anthony. Kayfabed. They have been selling like crazy. So we are down to the last few cases, but we still do have every one of them in stock. Now those, if you mention that you did hear the show today, you'll receive 20% off already low prices. What I mean by low prices on those is if you flip over onto the back of your PWIs, you'll see the ad that says $11, $11.99. Well, our price is $7.99 every day, and 20% off tomorrow. For all wrestling fans.
Is that the Junkyard Dog dolls? Or?
No. We're talking Bam Bam, New Hulk, One Man Gang. However, tomorrow we're having shorter hours, only 10 to 5.
Okay, that's a holiday. But now, what we're going to do, I hate to cut you off.
Go ahead.
And you just cut him off again.
Cut him off again, dude.
That's it.
Shut him down.
$7.99 for LJNs. Boy, if only knew then what we know now.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, $7.99. I like the idea that you're like, there's just so many Vince McMahons, because I feel like he's a pretty pricey one at this point.
Oh, he is.
I think Fuji's a pretty pricey one. Yeah. I think because those ones that were everywhere that no one wanted, no one wanted. So they didn't have them. You know what I mean? Like everyone bought Hogan, so everyone's got the Hogan around.
Yep.
Everyone wanted Iron Sheik. Like, so yeah, the idea that there was all these Vincents and the Fujis. I'm just like, Jesus.
Wish I had some of them today. And those Hasbros, I used to have cases of them to sell to conventions. My goodness.
Oh yeah. Huh. In our last clip too, we'll get to it if you don't have anything here. But Larry starts telling people like, buy these and hold on to them. You know, like he gets into it. So
very intuitive.
Yeah, he knew what was up. Although his projection was a little weak. But was there anything else on this one that you wanted to touch on? You wanted to get to that last clip?
No, let's hear the last clip and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, I guess not. Abdullah.
We're having fun. Abdullah, congratulations.
That was Iron Sheik doll. Those are going over big these days. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, you said these dolls are going to be collector's items. If you have these dolls now, don't open them up. Just save them and put them away, and they'll be worth money in about 5 years.
Okay.
What's going on?
There is a very interesting market. Now, as you may know, there's collecting of everything. You got stamps, you got coins. Well, toy collecting has been around for ages. Now,
I wish I had my original Mr. Machine from the early 60s.
Okay, now, all toys that you pretty much buy for collecting, you got to keep sealed. And now that a lot of the toys have been coming on those blister card packs, they make it more difficult to keep sealed because it's you can't really open the box and play with it and then put it back in. So now it becomes more of a real collector's item because there are going to be a lot fewer of these toys that are still sealed. The WWF dolls are out. There is no more being produced. And I don't think they're going to ever come back in this size. This was really, of this type of doll, it was really a very interesting innovation because it was the first time a doll had been done like it was pretty much like a statue, and it was on a hard rubber. It was made incredibly well. The features were really well made. Recommended, pick up whatever you can, at least one, if you can, even if you go to Toys R Us, whatever. Sometimes you can find the early ones like the Hulk Hogan's, Don Morocco's being closed out for as much as $2.98. Pick them up even if you see stacks of them. Eventually you're not going to see any. Stick them in your attic, make them disappear for about 5 years, 6 years, because just like superhero dolls from only 2 years ago, Superpowers dolls, Marvel dolls, they're going for a minimum of anywhere from $8 to as much as $30, $40 for like a Wolverine. And this is only a 2-year-old toy. I do predict that these WWF dolls will be the same thing because I don't see the WWF letting up in any way, shape, or form. They're steamrolling promotions all over the place.
And they'll probably continue to do that.
Oh, they're going to be around for a long time.
And yes, truer words were never spoken.
His hold on to it for maybe 5 years, and that's when it's going to peak. That was a little light.
Who would have known?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
He's like, I think they're gonna be around for a while, and yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, good episode today, Marsh.
I was also, as a collectible nerd growing up, my dad had a collectible store and everything, so we were very cognizant of packaging and damage and all that stuff. It's interesting to hear him note in this one the new style blister packs make it hard to play with a toy and put it back.
Yeah.
How much of the collectible market, I wonder, were all gently used but new in box? You know what I mean?
Good call. Yeah, right. Because you
I
could
wonder.
just open them up, slide them out, and bingo,
Yep.
go to town.
Yep. And if you put it all back just right, then hey, man, never been used. Because you see it on a lot of those old boxes. They just have like a little piece of Scotch tape right on top.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it. Very true.
Oh,
All right. Yeah, good one today. Obviously, we'll be back next week with another spectacular rewind.
yeah,
So
absolutely. I'm excited. This is cool. I know we're in a bit of a weird spot with our Patreon only thing, but I think it's a cool little part of our adventure. And I think that this is actually a good time for that too, because this is a little bit of a heavier, denser show, some of these ones. And I think that your diehard fans, the more passionate ones, are going to appreciate that even more.
Yeah, and Patreon has come up with something now about generating social media clips that we can, because we do want to get the word out to the general public that we can start doing this, and I'll have more information on that next week when we talk again, because there are some updates about the distributor that we were associated with, and I'll be able to kind of fill everybody in and where we stand and all of that. So things are coming to a resolution. Let's put it that way.
I think it's all good.
Yeah,
Thanks for
it's
letting
going
me
to be
come
fun.
through
We're still doing it, so we're here.
And what I like too is that like when it's all said and done, as crazy and as weird as all the other shows that we are part of and do, this is the one a week that just feels like this is nice. Like this is like the warm blanket of it all. This I think we keep doing no matter what.
Yeah, we will. We're here to, we're here. I was very disheartened a few weeks ago when everything started going down over the last 3 weeks, whatever it's been, 3-4 weeks. But we'll continue on. We'll provide the fans the history that they crave and that they love listening to, and we'll continue on. What are we going to do?
Absolutely.
We're going to entertain and enlighten and educate.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And Marsh, you don't even have to plug yourself today because I put you in the closing credits.
Oh, amazing. Also, don't forget to tell people.
I take that burden right off of you.
Perfect. Don't forget to also the Killer Kowalski clip.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you all that stuff, and I do have I have several photos of that infamous toupee match, some really good shots. So I'll send you a bunch of stuff, and we could just intersplice that the photographs as we have the Kowalski interview running, and then at the end of the show we'll insert the little promo he did at Weekend of Champions '92. So keep your eye out for that one, Ab.
Thank you.
All right. That will wrap up this edition. And I do want to let everybody know that we'll be back next week. And we have enjoyed this, and we enjoy it, as Marsh said, each and every week. And we will be coming back. I want to let everybody know we have that private Facebook group if you'd like to join that. It is facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight podcast and radio show. We have two public page. We have a public page under Matt Memories. We have a private page under Matt Memories there. We have the YouTube channel that features clips from all of the shows, and that's at youtube.com /Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Please subscribe to that channel now. A lot of content up there. You can follow me on X at John Arezzi, Instagram at John Arezzi, and Threads as well. You could follow Marsh on X at Ref Marsh, and at Instagram at Wrestling on the Rocks. If you'd like a signed and numbered copy of my book, Matt Memories, My Wild Life in Pro Wrestling, Country Music, and with the Mets, send me an email, john@mattmemories.com. Thanks again to our producer, creative director, co-host of the new Rewind show, Marsh. And thanks to Patreon executive producers, Joe Holloway and Anthony Pyrus. And for each and every one of you patrons for your support in helping with the production costs of this show. Without you, there is no show. Until next time, when we relive more history with you, this is John Arezzi for the Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
What's the most rewarding part about running your wrestling school?
The rewarding part of running my wrestling school is nothing rewarding about it, because I see some young people, young kids, come up to my school for the size of midget basketball players, it seems. They weigh about 150, 160 pounds. They have a dream to become another big Hulk Hogan or someone. Well, it's really heart-rending to say, look, just live the dream and forget about it. And that's very disheartening, because some of these kids, they have their life set upon it because they're big television fans. And they think just by coming to a wrestling school and learning, they're going to become great wrestlers. Such is not the case. But if you look at some of the athletes we see today, the small little ones just aren't there. People want to see size, because they've been educated by watching television to expect big Superman Hulks. Of course, the mistake they have today, I'm going to have to admit it too, the majority of them take drugs. Steroids, that's what I mean by drugs. Because I never took a steroid in my life, never smoked in my life. I don't even take any aspirins or anything like that, never did. And yet, I was as well built as any of them. There's old pictures of me. My name is Killer Kowalski, in case you people don't know. There's old pictures of me and look just as great, and if not better, the majority of the guys you have today. Yeah, I don't have the 23-inch arms, but my arms were 18 and a half to 19. I worked out hard. I worked out 4 or 5 days a week in that gym, but I knew how. Do you think steroids will build up your body? You think weights, bodybuilding build up your body? This builds up your body. And you make a goal of yourself. Hold a picture, and you're becoming great and big, and you will have that picture. You attain your goal. Don't look back. Don't give up. Keep going forward, and you will make it. That's the whole secret. People today think that by taking drugs, taking steroids, doing this and other stupid thing like that, they're going to big up their body. Baloney. This builds up the body. Work on that. Hold the image of yourself. Because you know what they say, if you shoot for the moon, you might miss, or you might hit a star. By golly, that star could be you that you're going to hit. Don't look back, don't look down, look up and look ahead. And I'm telling you right now, do it the way I did it. I worked hard at it. I ate well. In fact, I've been a vegetarian now for 39 years. Now, I'm not professing that everybody should become a vegetarian. You live your own lifestyle, but live it well. Get away from all this other stupid drugs, other drugs you hear about too. And remember now, one little secret I'm going to tell you people. The body is between 75 and 80% water. So how much water the average person drinks? Well, we drink beer, we drink other garbage. Well, the body can't utilize that whatsoever. Drink water, not with your meals, because you disrupt digestion if you drink water with your meals. You dilute the digestive juices. Don't drink no water with your meals, but drink water between meals, before meals, and drink a lot of water. For every 10 pounds of body weight, you should drink 1 glass of water. Remember, water is healthful to the body. Water is a great force, great power, great energy in the water. Why? Because water can wear away the biggest mountain. A drop of water at a time can wear a big hole in a big rock. Hey, water is powerful. Work at it, go after it, and you can do it. But set your goal to do it God's way. Kowalski's way, too. Hey, man, give it a shot.
Thank you.
Well, fans, that's all the time we have this week. I'm John Arezzi. See you next time, everybody.